Welcome back to Inside Politics. Today we're talking presidential policies, as we have been throughout this fall. We have Dr. John Weil, political science professor at MTSU, and Linda Peek-Schaap, who's the leader in residence in the College of Leadership and Public Service at Lipscomb University. Let's talk about Trump deciding or saying that he may not accept the results of the election. Dr. Weil, he was almost throwing off the bus his own vice presidential candidate who'd said, yes, we will accept it. His campaign manager had said the same thing. Even his daughter said the same thing. What was he thinking when he did that? What's the strategy?
Again, is he back to reality television? I don't know. You know, I did a book after the 2000 election on victory and concession speeches. And we have, you know, basically the last 100 years, you sort of had this convention of this is a chance, particularly after a bitter election, to try to do your part to unify the country. And almost always, you know, the loser will say, well, you know, I'm sorry I lost, but, you know, now this person who's elected is my president as well as everyone else's.
Now, Linda, there are some people who say, well, wait a minute, what did Al Gore do in 2000? How is what Al Gore did in 2000, contesting it in Florida, different from what Donald Trump is at least anticipating could happen, depending on what the election results are?
Well, the first is both of them agreed to accept the results of the election.
On the first debate, they did.
And so that is very different than when there is a close election calling for a recount. But I loved what happened when when Trump's surrogates tried to make this comparison, because John Meacham tweeted, for all of you trying to compare this to Al Gore in 2000, please stop. It is factually, historically, choose your adverb, wrong.
Now, Dr. Weil, another thing that happened over this last week is Donald Trump continues to say he's no longer tethered to the Republican Party. He's had a complete break with the leadership.
I'm not sure he ever was very tethered to begin with.
I guess that was one of my questions. He said that now he was free to say and campaign the way he wanted to. Have you ever felt, watching him during the primary or this fall, that somehow he was being restrained in what he had to say?
My goodness, what else would he say? There was 1 week between the National Nominating Convention and the election where he pulled back just a little bit, but no. And of course, part of his brand is, you know, the authenticity for him is apparently saying what you think when you think it, and just sort of hoping your supporters, if you go a little far out, they say, well, he doesn't mean that, but he's on our side.
If I may, I think what he's untethered from is the Republican Party leadership.
Yes.
And he's been allowed now, or he's allowed himself now, to do one thing he hadn't done before, which is attack Republican leaders.
Well, is he untethered to some degree from his own campaign leadership? I mean, it seems he's doing some things and making some statements like the one he made about not accepting the election that might be at odds from what he's being advised by his own campaign.
It'd be nice to be a fly on the wall and listen to some of these, you know, conferences.
Well, there's a fight, you know, between Steve Bannon and his Breitbart campaign CEO and Kellyanne Conway and to a certain extent his vice president. And that is, Bannon wants the scorched earth approach, and I think the other two really would like to get back to what they think would win the election, which is staying focused on Hillary Clinton.
Trump is capturing the headlines. And for a primary campaign, you know, when you have 16 opponents, maybe that's okay. But now it's not just capturing the headlines, it's making sure that some of the coverage is positive.
He had a tendency to, in part of capturing the headlines, was to constantly, on an issue he thought was important, whether anybody else thought it was or not was unimportant, he would double down and do it a day after day after day. In this particular case, does he need to learn more? I mean, maybe too late to learn this now, that it's time to get off stage for some of these issues, because they're not good. They're not working well for him the longer they stay in the news.
I think the sexual harassment thing, I mean, you still would have had women coming forward, but if he had simply said, you know, my behavior has changed over the last 15 years, I'm sorry for anything I did, and moved on, instead of trying to contest and call people ugly and the like, I mean, terrible strategy.
Well, Linda, is his bringing up the rigged election and now sort of saying he doesn't know whether he's going to accept it, sort of setting up a reason for why he lost, anything other than it was my fault, or I didn't?
Well, I think so. I think it's probably very hard right now for him to accept, but I do believe if he is listening to Bannon and some of the others in his campaign, he's laying the groundwork for a loss. But he's laying the groundwork, I think, less for a loss and more for saying, I was robbed.
Now, Dr. Valen, you can both respond to this. So are we now dealing with the situation following this third and final debate we go in these last 2 weeks? Is it a question not if Hillary Clinton is going to win, but the margin she's going to win by, and what that win might mean in terms of what it does to Congress?
It would appear that way. But we've already, we've had so many October surprises that some of them occurred in September. And so I would not be...
And they could occur in November.
I'm going to say, well, and we have a longer
there.
time period that they could occur this, and WikiLeaks particularly, we live in a very violent world. Aleppo could fall within the next couple of weeks. We could have a terrorist attack somewhere, and it's hard to know for sure who that would benefit, but it might benefit Trump.
I think it's really the wrong thing right now for the Clinton campaign to be confident. And from reports that we're hearing, they could be overly confident right now. They do see states that they believe they could put in their column if they spend more money there. And those states that have been leaning Republican or Republican could give her more of a mandate and make it harder for him to say that the election was stolen.
Linda Peake Schatz, our guest from Lipscomb University, and Dr. John Weil from Middle Tennessee State University. We're talking presidential politics, and we'll continue that after you watch these messages.